The original UI for Age of Mythology isn't great, or at least it's not aged well in the last 20 years. You can't see how many villagers are on each resource, and a third of the screen is taken up with an opaque bar that you can't see behind, basically just obstructing your view. You can get around this though, by downloading mods. I want to share a few of my favourite ones, as I get a lot of questions about it, and also go through some useful settings and hotkeys as well. There'll be a link to everything I talk about in the description. First up is the UI. My UI is called Ipperts Complete UI, and asking what UI I use is probably the question I get asked the most. The biggest feature of this mod is removing the huge bar at the bottom of the screen and making it transparent, so you can just see more of the map. It's so useful to see hunt, gold mines, and the best wood line when you first load into the game. You don't have to waste your time searching around. You're also more likely to spot an incoming raid or the enemy sneaking around. It also shows a more detailed overview when you click on anything in the game over the standard version. For example, a Minotaur on the original UI shows the basic stats of HP and armor, and whichever attack stat is highest. But Minotaurs have both hack damage and crush damage, but the original UI can't show this. Ipperts UI shows you both, as well as the amount of favour a Norse player gets for killing it, line of sight and train time. It just displays all the information you might need. Another feature is the mod also shows how many villagers are on each resource, which is a bit of a staple for most UI mods, but it's surprising it was never in the original game. You can find this both for the Steam Workshop and boobly.com. My next favourite mod is Ipperts Enhanced Tooltips. It's made by the same guy. This adds more of a description to everything that you hover over. For example, the base game will say, spearmen are only good against cavalry units, which doesn't make much sense, and it always confused me when I originally played the game, because they can be used against anything, they just get a bonus against cavalry. And siege weapons, which isn't mentioned in the original. The enhanced tooltip shows these things. I find it most useful for relics, as I often forget what relics actually do and how much of a bonus they give. Rather than just saying bonus damage for archers, it will give the actual percentage. It also means it's easier to see which relics are actually useful, as some of them give such a weak bonus. The descriptions on god powers can be particularly useful when you're playing random god and you're not sure of the exact benefits, like Odin's great hunt ability. I never remember how much food it grants because I barely play him. All I have to do is look up at the tooltip and it tells me exactly how much food. So then I can count how many pigs I can squeeze in for the conversion. And each building shows how long it takes to build, which can be very useful, especially in situations like a ceasefire, where you need your building finished in a limited time. Again, you can find this on Extended Edition and boobly.com. Those are the two main mods that I use, but I do have some honourable mentions from others that I've seen. The first is the Villager Carry mod. This mod always shows what resource your villager is carrying, even when they're working, so they'll have the gold on their back or wood on their back, so it's easy to see at a glance which units need to drop off resources. I first saw this on one of AOL Iron Maiden's videos. I've only found this for the original game, so if anyone knows an EE version, please let me know and I'll add the link below. If you want something slightly different, you might like Ipperts UI, which has a toggle between the translucent and the opaque UI, as well as it lets you trade without clicking on the market and changing formations without having to go to the next screen. This is a mod I used to use, and I've seen Soup use this from some of his most recent videos. Both of these honourable mentions I've found on AOM Heaven under a compilation mod with lots of other visual changes, if you're about that. Now onto some useful settings. I don't want to do a whole breakdown of hotkeys, as I feel like it's mostly personal preference to what you actually prefer, but there's one that you can't live without. If you're somebody that uses auto queue, then you need the auto queue hotkey. This saves so much time, especially when you're queuing up multiple different buildings, like a stable, a military academy, and an archery range. You can just hit each of the buttons, the button for the main unit, and then hit auto queue. It would save so much time over having to use the mouse every time. In Extended Edition, you can change this in the hotkey menu, but for boobly, you'll need to change a text file saved in the settings. Is the user.con and user.cfg. I'll leave an exact copy and paste job that you can just do into one of your files, as that's how it worked for me. I personally use Y as my auto queue hotkey, mainly because Q, W, E, R, T are the keys that I use for my other hotkeys. Next up is flashing damage. This is another question that I've got a few times, and it is a bit of a game changer to see which units are being attacked without having to hover over them. Again, if you're doing the Voobly version, you'll have to change the text document to say plus flash hit points bar on damage. And if you're playing on Extended Edition, it's again just in the settings menu. Just a quick bonus tip for Voobly, you can also put your resolution to 1920 by 1080 and that will make it widescreen rather than the old square resolution. And finally, we have the zoom out. Unfortunately, this is an EE only feature, but it's actually really useful. I didn't think I'd be a big fan of this because I played the original game so much, but it's been a lot of help during my speedruns, and I'm sure it would be useful for multiplayer just to get a better view of the area, but would definitely take some getting used to. There are a lot of mods out there where you can completely change the look of the game, but these are some of my personal favourites, because it doesn't change them too much from the original, but it changes it just enough so you get more information and can see more. If there's any other mods you use, please let us know in the comments below, and I might check them out.